Cheers, everybody, and welcome to episode 62 of Variables, your favorite late night Friday night hash cast. We're your hosts, Fergoli, Pedro, Superior Buds, and tonight we've got a special guest, Pez-Bro. You can find us streaming live every Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on X, YouTube, Twitch, and after the show on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. Pedro, tell us a little bit about who we got tonight.
Yo, I am super freaking stoked to have, I guess we'll call him Pez-Bro on tonight. Yeah, just a great friend, multiple competition wins. Dude's been making hash longer than me since 97, 2 years longer than me. Single source, I believe. And I've been making rosin since, I believe it was 2016, yeah?
2015.
Oh, 2015.
Yep.
And been friends with him for 8 years, I think now.
Yep.
And seriously, one of the dudes I look up to big time in the industry. So thank you very much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'm stoked for the conversation.
Heck yeah. I appreciate you guys inviting me and having me out here on your show. Yeah, man, I've been single source. I also since 2015, and I've also since 2015 processed for a lot of farmers as well. So I'm only single source to an extent. Once my harvest has been processed into rosin, then I'm just running a lot of different farms here in Mendocino County in California, and that's they're all organic farms too that I work with. So we have some really conscious growers out here that are growing a lot of sun grown and a lot of light depot that I mainly work with. I rarely ever get to work with indoor. So yeah.
Sounds a lot like me. I do a lot of for other growers as well. But I always make sure that I visit their grow to make sure that it sounds bad, but that I approve of them. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. You got to, sometimes you go into a garden that's just not cared for, dirty, garbage everywhere.
Or you find those greasy ones you just don't want to wash.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the one of the biggest warnings. Okay, so there's this great quote. It's a smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And I learned that early on. And one of the little mistakes that I heard from someone else one time was about how their bag of weed, I think it was trim or whatever, but their bag of weed that they were given to process, and they're just doing some bulk processing probably at the end of the season or something. And mind you, this is hydrocarbon, of course. They started, not sifting through the material, but loading columns and whatnot, and they're noticing like things in there that doesn't seem to be just green trees and maybe some stems and a handful of other leaves. They're like, there was twist ties, scrog deadings, there was like parts of gloves, and I think they even found a cigarette butt. And it's like, holy shit, be a little more choosy with maybe who you work with, guys.
Absolutely. I learned a lot from watching people on Instagram and YouTube and whatnot. You can always up your game,
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with a lot of high-end farmers here, and one of the farmers that I've worked with have brought me a lot of fire that I've processed. And then one day he brings me this tote and he's like, yeah, man, I had a little bit of a pest problem. And I'm like, fuck, man, I really don't want to run this. And he drops it off and I didn't look at it. And after he left, I open up the lid and I look at it, and there's live bugs crawling in it, man. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? I'm like, dude, why did I commit to this? Like, that's a huge mistake, And I trusted the guy, and it's, just.
I'd make a last minute call and tell him I'm sorry, but I can't wash this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That needs to be sitting outside until you come pick it back up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I lit this whole thing on fire. What the heck? Like, why are you even bringing that shit over here? Get out of here. It's crazy. That's so crazy.
No, we didn't run that little. It was a small tote. We didn't run it. There was no way we could do that. It's horrible. There's no way.
Big time. I understand that. I got to go. I work in the commercial industry out here now, and I got to walk into the grow and check all the plants and make sure that their washers are not just mainly by feel and by look, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a lot that I say, nope, go to flower.
Yep. Yeah, and it sucked. Like we worked with this greenhouse and they ran a lot of LCG. I don't know if you know the lemon cherry gelato. Does not dump. In case you ever get lemon cherry gelato, don't wash it. It's not worth it. It's fire, but it's like a 1% yield. It's so bad. And we had to process it, we got paid to do it and to run it all for them. So it is what it is sometimes, but it's definitely, you definitely have to pick and choose what you want to work with if you have that option. Sometimes you don't have that option. And sometimes you trust these farmers really, really well because you've worked with them for so long and you've processed so much stuff for them that has been absolutely fire and has dumped at the same time. So sometimes you get those ones that just aren't as good.
What do you consider a washer?
Anything over 3.5%, 4%. That's worthy of washing and to process and to make multiple SKUs out of them. I like hitting 6-7%ers if you can get those, which are harder to find. But we've been washing some government Oasis, and I didn't really calculate the numbers, but we washed 43 pounds and we got 689 grams of rosin out of it. It was pretty nice.
Yeah.
When you're starting a new cultivar, a new strain, do you wash just go for it, or do you wash a tester?
Most of these people, I'll do a field test, by stickiness, but with the hands. I'll go out and visit their farm, and they'll allow me to grab their buds and kind of get my fingers sticky, and then I pull away, and I'm waiting for my fingers to create a long string in between my thumb and my finger as I'm pulling them apart. And when I get those ones that are just nice and stringy, I know those are going to be good washers. Anytime I get no stringing, no resistance, and it's just oily, it's not worth the time to wash.
Yep.
Is that what they call greasy around here?
Yep.
That would be greasy. Yeah, non-washer might be greasy. It's just too oily.
I like to grow a lot of greasy strains. Unfortunately, I am the hydrocarbon guy, by the way, and that's kind of a benefit of what I do is being able to process those non-washers and still capture kind of that essence of that plant. Some of my favorite strains happen to be high terpinolene, kind of just really terpinolene dominant strains. So that's like a hazy citrusy type that often doesn't, in my experience and many others, wash very well. And really it's just not, at what point does it become not worth it? I think maybe that question was already asked. Was it 3.5%? Because to me, that's not like the not worth it line, but that's like the acceptable overall average, kind of like, like anything above that is like thumbs up, you know what I mean? But I've been there where someone's brought me like a 6 weeker or something that they cut way too early, and they knew they cut it early, but they're just trying to get it through or whatever. And it's like, dude, you're not going to be happy with these results. You know what I mean? Like, you might be cool with the color, but that's about it, bro. And like, that's what it was. It was like a 1.5% or something. It's just, I don't know what you expect, but.
So you don't have a problem with running greasy as far as yield?
No, actually one of my greasiest strains, Lime Skunk, has given me 5% several times in a row the last few times now. So,
and what do you look for yields?
I don't. Well, 3.5, like I said, 3.5% is honestly what I would call like I don't want to call it an average, but honestly, it's probably like a median, you know what I mean? Something like that. It's one of those
standard,
Yeah. But like a 4% is like, all right, everyone's happy. Like I'm happy. whoever grew it's happy. Like even if it was me, I'm so happy. Like, but like everyone's happy. You know, if I see 4.5, it's like, all right, like you got some like nice material here, like in that category anyway. That returns. And then we see 5% plus. It's like fucking grow more of that, buddy. Like
Yep.
Yeah, we get under 3.5 ish, and I'm in the garden or in the washroom checking, like, are you guys doing something wrong?
right. What's the water temp again?
Yeah, right. So I mean, I run the whole lab, so I don't do the washing, but I got to make sure that they know what the fuck they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
So where do you work? I'm gonna have a real problem calling you Pez-Bro tonight.
No, it's okay, man. You can call me Paul. You can call me Paulie. People got all kinds of nicknames for me, bro. So I'm in Mendocino County. Yeah, the background here. This is my cold room. It's a 12 by 15 tough shed that I converted into a cold room, and I insulated the walls with the house insulation, and then we boarded that up with plywood, and then I've got 1.5 inch thick foam board surrounding my whole walls, ceilings, everything. We basically just really turned this into a really nice cold room. We get it down to 38 degrees, 37 degrees in here. It's cold as fuck. And this is where we work at, bro.
What are you using to chill the room with?
I have what is it? It's a 65,000 BTU, 240 volts AC with a cool bot hooked up to it.
Damn, that's a real big boy.
Yeah, that's a real big boy.
Yeah, it's way overboard, but man, there's a lot of times we go iceless. We don't have to put any ice inside of our wash machines because my vessel that is right below my freezer there, you can just kind of see the rim. How do I go? Like right there. That's a 70-gallon water vessel that is wrapped with neoprene. And dude, I fill that with 40 pounds of ice, and that water is so fucking cold. I mean, you can't put your hands.
What's your outside temperatures like? Just
during winter or summer?
Well, yeah, both. Yeah.
So winter time? Mornings we're hitting 32 degrees, 27 degrees. Then it stays up into the 50 degrees in the winter. And then summertime, we're hitting 110, 115. And
there's your 65,000 BTU, right?
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, exactly. So on those days that it's 105, 110 degrees outside, I have no problem keeping it 40 degrees in here.
That's
38
awesome.
degrees in here. Yeah.
Do you have? Did you build an airlock at all, or is it just try not to leave when you're cooling?
No, it's just there's no airlock in here. It's just there's a little bit of ventilation, not much, mostly ventilation through the AC, just because that's it. And then I have a fan up in the ceiling to vent hot air.
I was gonna say when it's 100 degrees outside and you're 30 inside, the last thing you want to do is exchange air. So,
oh man, it feels horrible when you go in and out, like, and you got to go get lunch, or when we go take dabs, we go into my garage and go take dabs in there, and so it's just like, holy shit.
Do you get a lot of summer colds from sickness from the temperature changes? Such a drastic.
No, we get pretty used to it. The wintertime, we're definitely wearing pants and like long johns under, an extra long sleeve hoodie, maybe a jacket. Summertime, I'm in here in shorts and just a regular hoodie like this. And I love it. It feels so good in here.
God bless the Milwaukee heated jacket.
Yep.
Oh, I love that. I got one of those as a gift for my birthdays and for my wife, and I love that jacket, my sweatshirt. It's so awesome.
I got the long johns, so the pants and the shirt long sleeve, and they only heat in certain areas, right? Like your chest and your inner thighs and
back, maybe I think.
Yep. All the areas where the main blood vessel's going through. So they heat your whole body.
I work in a cold room at least 3 days a week, 8 hours a day. And my nose gets so dry, dude, from the air conditioner.
Mine runs.
Mini split. Oh, no shit.
Mine just runs and runs and runs, and I have to keep a napkin in my pocket, and I always have to keep wiping my nose because it just keeps running, and I won't be sick at all. And it just runs, bro.
I'm going to ask a bunch of questions tonight, probably for the chat as well. But what do you wash in?
What am I washing?
What do you wash in? You already alluded
Oh.
that it's a 70-gallon vessel, but
Okay, no, so that's a 70-gallon water vessel that we just hold our chill vessel, chilled water. And
Like a jockey box.
yeah, I wash, you can see it's kind of right above my finger. I got 2 5-gallon wash machines right here. And then I also
damn,
have,
you're still old school. Hell yeah.
Wow.
yeah, bro, we're super gentle and very cautious on how we wash. We put about 2 pounds in each of those machines.
I was going to say
And
46 fucking pounds. That's a long time.
takes us about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Not too long. Like we work about 4 days, 2 days a week. I'm busy with my day job too, which I work for the Soil King. I'm a sales director for that company and sell soil nationally all over the United States. So to growers and to retail stores and whatnot. But yeah, 5-gallon wash machines. I also have an 8-gallon, one of these guys, an AE green stainless steel wash machine that we use as well. Paddle driven versus those 5 gallons that are bottom driven. I want to upgrade to like a 15 or a 20-gallon like stainless steel, like maybe a mini Osprey or something like that.
I about a month ago or so, probably closer to 2 months ago, got the mini with the whole recirculation system and everything.
Nice.
I'm stoked to get it hooked up.
That is awesome. That's what I'm looking forward to.
You were talking about you run iceless sometimes there, when it's cold. That'll be a huge benefit with a stainless vessel. When I made that switch, I run a glycol loop. So I actually run my room at like 45. So I don't have to freeze my balls off anymore, but my water never leaves 32 degrees.
Yeah.
So
we have
glycol loop's nice.
We have a vessel that we put our water source, the water in, and we'll add ice to that, but we never wash with ice.
I have a separate glycol loop that loops around my 175 RODI vessel. So, and a neoprene jacket on it. So having that ice cold water and a lot of it is nice.
Dude, it's key. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant to say is that's a 70-gallon reservoir. It's not a vessel. I phrased that wrong. It's my 70-gallon reservoir is where we have our water brought into there, and then we put about 40 pounds of ice in there. And when it's 38 degrees inside of here, I'll put my temp gun on that, and I'll mix that water with the paddle. I'll mix that ice and push it down so that water that temperature is pretty even all the way through. And I'll put my temp gun on it, and it's hitting 27 degrees, 30 degrees, and I'm just like, that's freaking cold. You put your fingers in there and it starts burning. So that's why do you got to use ice if it's that cold of water and it's 100%. That cold in here.
Yeah, I got to go back through that video that I did with Jeremy at Build a Soil. There's so many things that I noticed that I could change and upgrade. I think I'm going to do like a 2 or 3 part series where I watch it and talk about all the things that I would change or have changed now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've come a long way from how we used to wash hash in 35-gallon trash cans and the huge 35-gallon bags and hand paddling and hanging them up with hoisting them up and squeezing them. Like we've done it all kinds of ways, to where we've come to now.
The helicopter with bag.
Yeah.
Twist around your head like a helicopter, dude. Or is it a Polaroid picture? I'm not sure. I can't keep up. So tell me, speaking of where we've come from, tell us about fuck it. I'll throw it all the way back. Tell us about the first time you ever smoked weed, man.
I was, I think 15 years old as we smoked it out in the football field at my high school.
Oh yeah. Was it a friend's older brother that sourced it for you?
No, it was just there was a group of kids that were the same age as me, and then there were some other kids that were friends with them that were 1 year older. And after practice, we all hung out up in the bleachers, and they had a fat joint, and we just smoked a joint. And it was our first time getting high. And my friend got so high that he had to call his dad to come and pick him up. And his dad picked him up, and he told his dad, pull over, and he started throwing up. And
oh my
no. God, I'm just like sitting in the corner, just like, what's going on? Like, oh my God. And I was fine, but I was just kind of tripping because he was throwing up and he couldn't hang. It was hilarious.
Go back to the question that we've kind of missed in the last couple episodes, but define hash to you.
Hash is processed loose resin. Hash is when people say the word, when you see a picture of loose resin, a big mound of loose resin just glowing,
bunch of heads.
Look at this hash. That's not hash. That's loose resin. Those are the resin heads, the trichome heads that you've collected off of the cannabis that you then turn into hash. And there's multiple ways of turning it into hash. Using a hot bottle with water in it and pressing it and rolling it, and or you can do it old school style and pressing in your palms. That's the way I like doing it, pressing in your palm.
So you don't
rolling it, and you're transforming it.
So you don't. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's good. That's what I was just saying. You're going to transform it.
So when you pull your trays out of the freeze dryer and there's a bunch of heads collected, dried heads, you don't consider that hash?
No. That's all loose resin. It's all loose resin. It's all trichome heads. It's everything that's fallen off the apple tree, basically. All your apples that have come off.
So it needs to be further processed into "quote unquote" apple juice.
Absolutely,
hash.
You're basically making
or
wine.
Apple sauce or whatever
right.
you might be making apples into.
I mean, do we call grapes wine? No, wine is made from grapes. So that's how I look at it. And just like you said, you can't call apples applesauce until it's been processed into that. So we believe hash is something that would mimic, or you would not mimic, but would remind people of a temple ball, bubble hash, something that's been processed, and whether it's been washed, dry sieved, or however you've collected those heads off of your plant and processed it and squished it, applied heat and pressure to it somehow, whether it's with your palm or hot water bottles, and letting it age. Just like wine, you let wine age, and you let your hash, once you've transformed it into that form, you let it age for a minimum 3 months up to a year, and then you just have some of the highest quality hash. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever heard that definition, so I like that. I always think it's kind of funny when you get the people that wash hash and just leave it at hash, when they bitch about the heat that we're putting on it, and then they show a fucking video of them rolling a hot water bottle across it.
Exactly. So that's
the fucking difference. And they're probably applying heat longer than we are on the press.
Exactly. And sometimes they got that water way too hot when they put it in that bottle, and you're repressing it and repressing it and repressing it and rolling it and flopping it, rolling it, re-rolling it. And it's good, but I personally like hand rolling it in my palms and pressing it with my thumbs and just applying the heat that comes off of my hands, and then rolling that up into nice little balls, and then it's just got a nice sheen to it. You wrap those up, and I store them for like 3 months. After that, I take them out of the cellophane, and we let them air dry for a day or two, and then they go into jars with a piece of parchment so they don't stick to the glass.
So just to define it a little more for chat, do you consider rosin hash?
I consider it a form of hash. I don't consider rosin hash. You can say that it was made from hash. You can't even say hash rosin, because unless you're pressing a brick of hash that again has been processed into that form of hashish, not a brick of loose resin that that is just stuck together and doesn't have that, granite look to it, or that sheen on the top of it that has that layer. That's hashish. And so no, I don't consider rosin hash. I consider it another form of a type of hash.
Go ahead.
Was BHO hash?
Same thing. It's a type of hash. It's another form of hash. It's being processed from the same heads to another form that some people can call it hash, but I don't consider it hash. When I talk about hash, I'm talking about temple balls, black, gooey, granite style looking hash. When you cut them open, that's hashish.
It's funny. One of my last posts, I was in there and I called hash dirty rosin.
Yes, we did a collab on that.
Well, that's right. I did invite you on that. That's right. That was an interesting one to read through.
Oh, that
as
was
far as
great.
Comments going, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've been wanting to post that for a long time. I just didn't know exactly how I wanted to word it.
And so when we would teach classes, we would have people coming from all over the United States, and we would try and teach people the right terms for what we're doing in this industry or this craft that we're doing, and that's just like the word hash. What is hash? What is loose resin? What is on those trays that you're pulling off there?
Here's one that I've been wanting to get into for a long time. I guess I'll just do it raw. When making rosin, how do we ensure that there's at least the littlest amount of the waxes and lipids in the end result? Yeah, I know, right? I know.
That's a tough one. I mean, you got to process it into all different forms, and then go get them tested in all those different forms, I guess. I don't know that, bro.
Keep it really cold to do it with hydrocarbons. There's your answer.
Right. I don't want to get into your super tech that you have, secrets on, but
I don't have secrets, bro. I'm an open book. I teach everybody everything I know.
What press are you using?
What press?
Yeah.
I use two different presses. I have the Terminator Terp Stack 3-plate press, and then I also have the low temp. What is it? The V2.
With the low temp, do you have the LT3?
Oh gosh, I don't know. You want to see
That's
it?
The smart one. The screen.
No, I don't have the smart. The thing. But I just got.
Excuse me.
This guy right here.
Nice.
And then I've also got my Terminator Terp Stack that's all custom with my logos on it, and it's got my logos up on the up here.
Hell yeah!
Fuck yeah, dude! That's.
But I mean,
I got one for you. Is it an automatic washer or is it paddle washing?
They're automatic washers, all of them that I use. I used to do all paddle washing, and I got tired of that, bro.
I know. I was gonna say I see some. I hate to say it, but I see some grays. We've all got some, and at a certain point, man. How long are you gonna keep fucking paddling or raising stainless steel? You got to work more efficient.
Man. Paddling's not hard.
Paddle washing.
It depends on how long you're doing it for. There,
yeah.
Okay. No one needs traps the size of the dude from fucking Game of Thrones.
If we're talking an 8-hour day, I would not want to be pushing a paddle.
Exactly.
But ain't no one lifting those fucking vessels, man. I got a motorcycle jack. Fuck that.
Oh no, I'm talking about
50 years old. I ain't lifting that shit.
Yeah, I'm talking about stainless steel closed loop systems, not fucking 50-gallon drums, bro. Like that. No, that's crazy. It's like
how much 20 gallons of water weighs? Holy shit.
Well, I know 5 gallons is 40 pounds, so
it's like 6 pounds a gallon or something, right?
I don't know what's 20 divided by 5. 4.
Fucking no, a gallon. 7 pounds, I think.
I'm already fucking. Don't do math live.
We've learned this. We have learned this.
Moving on. 4. Move on.
All right, let's get into some details. What do you use for bags?
I use for pressing.
Yeah, like microns, and who you get them from.
Oh, so first of all, I use all Rosin Evolution. I work with Rosin Evolution. I have what do you call it, a checkout code. When you go to Rosin Evolution, you type in Pez-Bro, you get a discount.
Plug it.
Yeah,
Is there
plug that
underscore?
shit.
Is it all one word? What is it?
All one word, yeah, just Pez-Bro.
All right. How much is that going to save me? And where do we go? Give the website again.
It's rosinevolution.com. You use the checkout code Pez-Bro, and you receive at least a 5% discount, I believe, on all your purchases. And I also use all of the Rosin Evolution bags, the wash bags, the press bags, their parchment paper, all of it.
Have you upgraded to their Pro line yet?
They just sent me some Pro lines the other week, so
I want to get your thoughts once you've used them, because we've not used them yet. So
I haven't used them yet. They're all in my drawer, brand new. I haven't used them yet. But when I'm pressing the microns I'm using, when I pack my loose resin into my bags, I'm using a 25 micron. What I pack the loose resin into, I use a 3x6, and I like to put 20 grams of loose resin in there, and then I'll fold the top of it. I hand flatten it on my stainless steel tables. So I'm applying a little bit of heat just from my palm, even though it's 38 degrees in here when we're doing that.
Those tables stay cold, bro.
They stay cold, but that loose resin starts to stick to the pores of my bags is what I want to happen. And then after that, I put that 25 micron bag into a 15 micron 3x6 bag and fold it the opposite way, so that on the back side I have two flaps touching each other this way, and my other side is completely flush, clean. Seams are on both opposite ends. I never put seam on each side when I'm stuffing the bag in, and that's what I press with. Dave sent me 5 micron bags the other day to try out, so I'm gonna.
So you don't use
I don't know if I cut out there or something.
Yeah, you are. That's all right. So you use a 25, then 15. You don't use a 160 as well?
No.
No.
I only do 2 bags.
You don't find any problem with the bag slipping at all?
Nope. Only if we're working with a really greasy strain. And the only time that those bags want to slip or slide towards the front of the plate is if we're applying pressure too fast. So if we notice we have a greasy strain, we go extra slow when we're applying the pressure. We do the BVA hand pumps for all of our presses, because I like going low and slow so that I can feel everything when I'm pressing. And don't get me wrong, you'll get a blowout once in a great while, but there's no companies there are companies that can say they have no blowouts, but it happens. And it's very rare that it happens with us with the Rosin Evolution bags. So
you're going to really like those 5 microns, man. They make a difference. And nice. I do 25, then 5, and I do a 160 as well. It helps from slippage, and it helps for blowouts, especially when you're doing as much as I am a day.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't had any blowouts in months. What we have had a couple times is when we're making our directional flow paper. Once in a great while, we'll have, even though the bag isn't even touching the back or anything, we'll have a back seam just split open, just on the parchment, and that's it. So we're not having blowouts on the bags. But once in a great while, it'll happen. But it's just most of the time, I blame that. I'd say that's user error, unless you got a bag that was just stitched bad and you didn't notice it when you packed it.
Pisses me off when that parchment blows, because most of the time I'm going, it's not so fast, but kind of so fast that I don't notice it until it's running out the side of my fucking press.
So we do what's called a safety sheet. So I'll put a safety sheet that's folded kind of like a taco, and then we'll put our directional flow inside of that in case our directional flow splits open. Then it catches it everywhere inside that safety sheet, and it never gets on the plates.
So I do that because I make a mess if I don't do that. So I found my directional flow doesn't always fucking work. So that safety sheet, that's a good term for it. I've never called it that. That's the new word for it, though.
Yeah, we call it a safety sheet, man. That is what we do for that.
Do you want to share time, temp, and pressure?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. You know, when we're just pressing on, you know, for big production, my top plate is at 150 degrees, and my bottom plate will be at 130 degrees. I mean, 140 degrees. Sorry. When I'm pressing for competitions, my top plate's 140 and my bottom plates are 130.
And what time?
I don't time my presses. My presses are watched by eyeball. I don't believe in a timer in presses. A timer is not going to tell you that it's done. I'm looking for the flow of the rosin to slow down out of the plates when I hit the pressure that I want to hit, which is 3,400 psi when I'm pressing loose resin. Once I hit, you know, about 3,000 psi, I'm really watching the flow of the rosin come off the plates. And once it really starts slowing down, I'm giving it that little extra oomph to get to 3,400. And then at that point, I really watch it just slowing down. I don't want to see any color change. If something happens and I see a color change, I'm swiping the plates and I'm pulling out right away. Otherwise, I'm just going to let it drip. One of the guys that works for me, he times his presses and you know, he doesn't once it hits 5 minutes, he's not pulling, you know, he's still letting it have 540, whatever. He's doing the same thing, but he likes to time his presses to kind of see where he's at, what pressure he's at this moment. And that's fine as long as, you know, we're not letting the timer tell us that it's done, because it's not. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
You know,
yeah, so you're saying that there's it's like it's inconsistent or fickle, or it might be there's things that might change, or it's it's tending to exhibit genetic variation or variation in a physical trait, also known as
variables.
Yeah,
let's get it.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we work with a lot of different strains. They're all different. They're different farmers we're working with. And, you know, if we do a large batch and we're running one strain, we know that it's very consistent. They're all weighed out the same when we pack the bags. And so it's pretty consistent. And when my friend times them, he's hitting, like I said, around 5.5 minutes, 6 minutes at the most.
Damn, that's a lot longer than I'm used to.
I use also a lot lower temperature though too, right?
It is.
So I think that I was actually having a conversation about this with Master Ball Melts on X today, and we were talking about, you know, starting with no gauge and learning the feel of that press, and 100%. Then getting a gauge, and you get that gauge, and it's a level up, and you're like, whoa. And then you learn the math behind the gauge, and you're like, whoa, now it's another level up.
Yep.
I feel like the LT3 is kind of taken me to that next level where now I can watch the pressure and I can still feel it. I still can see it in the gauge, but at the same time, I watch that graph flatline and you're like, boom, done. And you know,
as long as the variables are consistent, of course, I working in the, you know,
no, that eliminates the variables. That's what I'm saying. The oil.
No, I'm talking about like bag thickness, how much rosin you put in there or hash you put in there. So I have to pay attention to all the times and pressures and whatnot. And as long as the variables are consistent, I do time. You know, I pay attention to time quite significantly. But I do miss using the hand pump. I moved over to an electric hydraulic just because, I mean, we're pressing 2,000 or 3,000 grams of hash in a day, you know?
Yeah, those electric hydraulics, they've got some power behind them, and they can squish. So what the reason, like, we press, you know, 5-6 minutes per press, I'm going to tell you guys why, and I'll tell you why I don't get any blowouts really. And it's because when we put our 20 gram bag inside the plate, and when just like you were just saying that you want to feel the pressure of that plate, you're watching your gauge. So it depends if you have an oil pressure filled gauge or if you have a BVA digital gauge. Like I have both. And so what I'm looking for, if I'm using a regular gauge, when I put that bag in there and I'm only applying enough pressure, you will not see that needle even flicker. You won't even see it flicker. Yep. All I'm doing is just touching the plates on there, and I'm letting it. I'm letting those bags sweat. I'm letting the loose resin start to melt and to saturate the pores of those press bags. And then once I see it saturating the very front whole line of that bag, then I'd give it a press, and I'm going to put about 250, 300 PSI on there, and that locks it there. I've already got leakage coming out of the bag, and it locks my bag there, and that's why I don't have to use a third bag. It sticks, and then it just starts to expand, and then I just slowly apply a little more pressure. And I only pull that hand pump enough to where I feel resistance. Once I feel resistance, I stop. And then I let that bag thin out from the heat and that pressure. It takes a couple seconds, and then I do it again, and then I do it again. I do it again, and I'm just going low and slow. And I feel like, we're preserving those terpenes. We're pressing phenomenal hash or loose resin. Again, I didn't tell you guys, we're doing what I consider full spectrum. We're doing a 45 to a 159 U, and we have clean, beautiful, sun-grown rosin. It's awesome.
Hell yeah. I was going to say before you said it there, it's not only a feel, it's a visual. There's visual keys too. 100%. And just real quick for your information, well, I guess, and everybody's, play with those pressures, man. I've found recently, just playing around, there's a little bit of a decrease in yield, but dude, I found like 500 fucking PSI does almost the same thing. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was blown away when I saw that.
I wonder what kind of PSIs we're getting out of doing this. You know what I mean? When he's talking about like his favorite way or the ideal way of like,
50,
just hand pressing
50
PSI. That's it.
50 to 100. Yeah, probably.
Well, yeah, I believe 50 to 100. I mean, you really got to be going to get higher than that, probably. But
we were genuinely perplexed though when I saw that starting to. Like I said, there is a yield decrease, but I couldn't believe that it was still yielding with that minimal of pressure.
Right.
Or it's that minimal. Yeah, that minimal of pressure.
Pez-Bro, you just talked about how one of the reasons you press low and slow is because of terpene preservation, excuse me. That's always gonna, intrigue me, perk my ears, so to speak, because that is ultimately the reason I choose to go the hydrocarbon route, is for the terpene preservation. Now, I don't necessarily agree, it's not that I don't agree. It's a different path to take, put it that way, of curing, so to speak, your hash after processing it, right? Because I'm really trying to capture, quite frankly, like the essence of the plant on the day of harvest. And to do that, I think the best way is to harvest it, lightly vac seal it, so to speak, fresh frozen, that method.
Mm-hmm.
Get it to the hydrocarbon, closed loop system with a tri-blend of hydrocarbons, and wash it, so to speak,
Right.
in a different method, of course. And kind of honestly, it's like, it's best fresh off the shelf too. It's like if you're not gonna consume it right away, you don't want it to just sit there for weeks to months on end on a I guess variably changing room temperature room.
Right.
But all that said, to me, it's about terpene preservation. Like, that seems to be the most important part of this plant to me, because every single one is unique. Every single phenotype of every single strain seems to have this unique expression of flavors, and they all have, not all of them, but generally speaking, they all have THC, maybe a little CBD, some CBG, CBN, some of this other stuff. But the terpenes are like, they're so variable. What are some of the methods, like from start to finish, that, especially with the harvest, because I don't think we focus on that enough, that help you preserve those terpenes in your process?
Well, I mean, one thing is how you harvest, for sure. There's times where we get people that don't listen to how I ask them to harvest their plants, even when I physically show them how to harvest, and it comes back to me frozen, stuffed in a bag really hard, and really, really leafy with cut leaves, ripped leaves, stems, stalks. And then when I process that, it smells like plant material. I don't get any terpene profile. It seems like somehow in that process it lost it, or there's too much chlorophyll in there, and that's all you're tasting. So when we're harvesting, we are beyond gentle with the plant. We cut down all of our buds into the size of a golf ball or smaller. Nothing's ever larger than that. And we're gently washing our cannabis in wash machines. And after we've pressed it into a fresh pressed rosin, what we like to do is I like to make it into large patties, like tacos, or tortillas, and then I freeze them. I seal them up and I freeze them. I try to lock those terpenes into that rosin right away and freeze it and lock it in there before I turn it into a cold cure or into a jam or into cartridges. So that's why we like going low heat, low temperature. We were pressing low. When we first started pressing, when I first learned, we were pressing at 220 degrees, but a press would only take us 2 minutes. It was done or less.
Working in the commercial industry, there's a fine balance between time and getting shit done and getting shit done the right way. So I do got to work with the harvest crew. We actually bring a crew in to harvest. But I do got to make some concessions regarding the harvest, how they harvest. But on that note, yeah, exactly. I wrestle all the time with quantity versus quality. But on the
real quick, sorry, I'm so sorry. Please hold that thought, Pedro.
No, that's okay. I got it written down.
Awesome. He brought something up. I didn't write this down, but he brought something up about the tasting chlorophyll, and he also talked about not having too many stems in there. Pick out the seeds and stems. We can all go back to Afro Men and when we grow up, and actually having to pick out the seeds and stems. When you're growing your own bud and you're harvesting for fresh frozen, you can actually not even harvest the stems. You know what I mean? You don't have to use them to dry or anything. So when it comes to fresh frozen, you could pretty much only have bud in there. One of the caveats, though, is not trimming those. Well, first of all, the fan leaves, those shouldn't be in there at all.
All right.
Right.
Let me jump in real quick here.
Okay.
Even though I work with the harvest crew and they do quantity over quality, I do not have a problem with chlorophyll. I pretty much completely disagree that chlorophyll in your wash has a problem with your final product if you're doing it correctly.
Okay, so there's probably going to be a correction in there that you can make on the processing side. I think
you can literally wash the chlorophyll out of your hash.
Absolutely. But I think if we want to put a little reliance on our harvest crew, there's a way to do it. Let's call it appropriately. And I think getting the less stems in there is one big part of that. I think not having fan leaves is another big part of that. But another thing Pez-Bro mentioned was not kind of cutting into the leaves.
Yeah.
And I used to just eat quickly. I'm fresh frozen, just get it in the freezer. Like just trim off the sugar leaves, just get it round about the bud, make it look like it was ready to be smoked, but it's just it's not. It's fresh frozen. It's got 80% water weight and everything still. But I quit doing that because I think it does make a difference if you just leave those sugar leaves on there fully intact and not cut them and expose those cell walls. Maybe it's just for my process. I can't speak for you.
Yeah, I was going to wonder if
that makes a process.
I was going to say, I wonder if that's the difference, or if BHO versus rosin versus solventless.
That actually makes sense with the difference where you're dissolving the trichomes and everything, so the chlorophyll's now in your soup, and you're having to separate it out later on using different steps. Whereas we're still sealed, and we can just wash the chlorophyll on the outside off, and then we press, dry and press.
But is it in the soup? First of all, is it able to be dissolved by hydrocarbons? First of all, right? If not,
I don't know that it's able to be dissolved, but leaking out, because we even have leaking out. like Pedro was saying, cut the leaves or trimming incorrectly, and you get greeny water instead of purplish.
Right.
Water.
Right. Another caveat: temperature. Is it able to be dissolved out at certain temperatures? So maybe and I know for a fact that you run the hydrocarbon process, through some material in a closed loop system at, let's say, 40 degrees Fahrenheit versus negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you're getting a lot of extra chlorophylls and other things in there you don't want, including fats and lipids. But that's another, that's down the road from this discussion, right? So, but yeah, the lower the temps seem to be less of that chlorophyll taste, the color, the flavor. Like, it's just, again, I keep going back to lower temps, but even not exposing those cell walls seems to help.
I've even went as far as like trying to figure out if there's a micron size to the chlorophyll itself. And I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me, but I believe that I remember reading that the chlorophyll does dissolve in water, and therefore you can just wash it out. If you're washing, I've always said wash your flour and then wash your hash. But I do have a question for you regarding the terps and whatnot. What would you say to someone when they're pressing, turning their plates up to 170, 175 and pressing for, say, 2 minutes?
I mean, I'd want to watch them, I guess, and see the flow and how much yield they're getting out of that, and how much loose resin they're pressing.
Come on over, bro.
If you're pressing a 20-gram bag, then I know you're going to get more out of it. That's still high quality. That's just as beautiful as the first few minutes of pressing. So
come on over, check it out.
Right.
Yeah. Most of the time I'm pressing. Most of the time the food grade is 45 to 72, and I pressed that at like 175 for 2 minutes ish. But all of my batter, all of the higher grade is pressed at like 170 for about, sometimes down as low as a minute 15 or a minute 30.
Nice.
Speaking of food grade, here's a little test run of some actually fully decarbed at this point food grade oil that I ran. This is a hydrocarbon oil. You can see the color there.
Nice.
Significantly darker than like a quote unquote live resin, but this is just older, cured bud. So this is a cured resin that I did mostly my normal process on. Didn't quite keep it as cold, if I'm quite frank with you, because going to edibles and topicals, I don't mind the natural fats and lipids of the plant because that's going to help carry this. Versus try to smoke it. I don't want that shit in my lungs.
Dude, if that was me, I'd heat that shit up till it's like a liquid consistency. I'd mix it 50-50 with coconut oil, and I'd put it in caps.
Yeah, I know you would. You know what I've been doing with it? I've been taking my dab tool and scooping some out and throwing it on just whatever the fuck I'm eating.
A cracker.
There you go.
Yeah, cracker, cookie, just give it to me. I don't care if it's a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Let's go.
About a year and a half ago, I dropped my temps down. So my average temp is about 160 now, but I haven't thought to go as low as you were going. I'm gonna play with it. It's never.
That's low, man.
It is
really
low. It's gonna. But I like the description of your process too. That helps out a lot with it. I think that made a lot of sense why you don't use what I've always called the scaffolding bag, the bag that gives us the grip. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Why you're not getting, I mean, I have a silk pillow on my bed and that fucker shoots out from under my head every night. So it's the same thing with those damn bags on a plate. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
I mean, that's it's wet. It's
Hell
beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the sheen.
And that's 45 to 159, sun grown.
I used to press that.
Nice.
That was what I pretty much started with. What do you go ahead?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like that's the full piece of the full pie. You're not just taking a sliver out of the pie and smoking it or eating it. I feel like I've got the whole pie in this, and you get the full effects, the full medicinal effects that some people may need. But
do you ever see your rosin drying up and breaking up more, being dry? And what do you think causes that?
I see certain strains or certain washes or loose resin that does that. Is I feel that it's more stable. It's less greasy. It's less oily. They're bigger heads maybe, or they have a thicker or stronger cell wall on those heads that have been just beaten on the sun here in California. It's a tough one. It's just something that we just wrap around and other hash makers are talking about and trying to figure out why it does that.
There's a lot of consumers that look for that wet consistency. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the wet consistency is always superior to the dry consistency?
No, not at all. It's just a personal way of how you dab. Some people don't like the drier consistency because it doesn't stick to your dab tool good, and it falls and it crumbles. And I've smoked some really dry rosins that were a cold cure or a batter that dried up or was really stable, even though it was turned into a fresh cold cure after the time. It was still dry and it still crumbled, but it was still terpy as hell, and it was beautiful. It was clean. Didn't leave any color in your banger. I don't agree with that.
I love hearing that, because a lot of, like I said, consumers look for that wet consistency, and when they get dry, they consider it mids.
Yeah, I don't believe that. No, that's not true in my mind.
Well,
I think
this is like totally strain dependent too. Like the reason I busted these out, because some strains are just terpier and they're just gonna carry more terps to the finish line than others, and you're going to get a wetter consistency. You can see this one, like, look at the holes in there. That's just the juice, man. Right. That's just going to fall out. It doesn't look from a little bit of farther away. That looks like maybe it's like a crumbly, dry texture, but you get up in there, man. That's just pockets of terps.
Right? Absolutely.
I think I had that at the bank once. Like, you dip your thumb in it so that you can move checks and shit, right? That's what it looked like.
Oh, I thought you were saying you were at the sheriff's office and it was for fingerprinting your ass. And then you got this Cobra milk, which I don't know how long I can even tilt this way. That's too much, man.
I'm glad you said that. Actually, do you consider wet versus dry to be a terpene percentage? I don't even know the words I want to say.
You asking me about
no? Well, I guess everybody
by volume.
Yeah. Do you consider it to contain less terpenes if it's dry? Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, almost. I think that's almost a proven fact. I mean, there's probably certain levels where your individual, like, you're not going to be able to tell, right? Maybe like a few tenths of a percentage or something. But I bet if I put a jar of, name the fucking strain in front of you, that was 2% terpenes, and then I put a jar of something in front of you that was 5% terpenes, I think you'd be able to tell the difference. I think it only takes a few percentage points to be able to see that wetness.
Probably, but number one, your fucking shit is too terpy for me.
Well,
and number two,
I'm sorry I sent you some fucking 11% Clementine. All right.
And we've actually found that it's within a 0.5 to 0.7 difference in terpene content, the wet versus dry.
There you go.
That's not much at all. Yeah.
I believe it, dude. I believe it.
So yeah, there is a difference, but I guess, Paul, can you attribute the drier stuff to maybe containing more waxes and lipids?
I mean, I couldn't tell you unless I saw test results, I really couldn't. I can't, I don't know what they taste like. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that waxes and lipids fucking thing has been in the back of my mind for a long time.
Yeah, it's
always in mind. And I'll tell you, I don't think that necessarily, Pedro, that's true. I don't think it's because, like, all the time of fats and lipids that it looks drier or is drier, but I think that could be a possibility. I think you bring up a good point, because certainly the higher percentage of terps is going to make it look a little wetter and actually might be physically more juicy. But a higher percentage of fats and lipids might also present as a little bit more of a harder, solid product.
A stabilizer inside the oil.
For
yeah.
sure. That's one way of looking at it.
That was why I typed in chat a little while ago, play with your fucking variables. You know, just for instance, you don't necessarily know that the temperature gauge on your LT3 or LT2, whatever you're using, is accurate, right? I mean, unless you're checking it every time. How do we know that?
Calibrate it with 5 other temperature devices around your grow room every time you use it?
I was like, wait a minute, are you not doing calibration day?
Every Sunday at 7 p.m. we do calibration.
Sorry, I was in the military, man. That's just SOP. I still check my tires every week too, so
No, Pedro, I'm not calibrating shit over here. I'll be honest, I'm just watering my plants. So no, I'm on board with that.
We don't necessarily calibrate, but I do play with the variables and watch the test results.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy enough to verify. They're either accurate or they fail. You know what I mean? Like there's usually not an in-between with a temperature sensor. It's a pretty simplistic piece of a probe. If we're talking humidity sensor or a room temperature sensor, those are different.
What about pH sensor?
Yep, pH and EC. pH, well, pH is super fucking picky, right? I mean, you got to keep them clean. You got to put them in a solution so that they stay stable, so you don't dry your probe out. I mean,
you brought up another thing that I wanted to get into a little bit. I guess just mention it because you said it. Paul, what do you think about humidity in specifically your press room? And I know your press room is your washroom, but you know what I'm saying.
Gosh, I've had people ask me about my humidity in my room, and honestly, I haven't even checked it. I don't have anything in here that tells me it. Honestly haven't checked it. I couldn't.
Yeah,
55,000 BTU. It has got to. I would imagine it's
dry as fuck.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's what I was.
But he also said his nose runs. So
that's what I was kind of getting at is when I'm in the press room, even at 55 degrees for 8 hours, my nose is super dry. I've actually thought about getting a evaporative.
I humidify mine.
Humidifier in there.
Yeah. So I mean, when we're washing, that's when it's 38, 40 degrees in here, and we're in here 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours, and those are the days. Those are the days that my nose is running. When we're pressing, it's 50 degrees in here, and I only have my AC on for 5-10 minutes just to drop it to 50 degrees, and I shut it off, and then it stays cold in here for about a half an hour. I look at my temperature gauge, and if it starts to reach close to 60, I flip it back on for another 10 minutes, and then it cools it back to 50, and I keep it there. And so on those days, my nose isn't running.
That's what I was gonna think. I was thinking you've got the water motion, and you've got the reservoir. You've got a lot of extra ice. You've got humidity being added just that way, which is probably offset. Yeah.
So I would definitely, I would say it's still definitely dry in here. I'm going to have to get a gauge and check that just to know.
Always good to know your variables, right?
Yeah. What is your outside relative humidity generally?
Oh God. It can be high. It can be really high at times. I mean, it's nothing like Arizona or anything like that, but
or Colorado.
So it's sometimes it can be really high, and otherwise I don't know the exact percentage, so I'm gonna say mid range, 70% or less.
Fuck, dude. I think ours here in Colorado, we're on the western slope. We're probably between 20 and 30. And then adding the air conditioners. Oh my God.
Come on, man. I'm telling you, Michigan's got it the worst. We go from -20 to 110, and we go from 0% to 100%.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
We have to plan for every extreme.
I remember back in Wisconsin, it was much more humid than it is here, but I didn't.
It depends on the time of the year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, our winters can get dry. If this lake freezes, and we get snow on the ground, it'll be horrible. I'm dumping humidity into the air with a giant humidifier. Otherwise, you're shocking everything you touch.
Damn.
I would just say to chat real quick, if you're going to consider adding humidity to your room, definitely use an evaporative humidifier. Don't use a misting humidifier.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, adding that moisture into the air via mist, I'm just scared of rather than an evaporative.
Well, here's the thing with that is know your water if you're going to use an actual misting humidifier. So even RO water will leave the small little calcium deposits across your room.
Even with evaporative?
Yep. Mm. Yeah. If you're RO water still has it's minor, but it's there. And it's funny, just before the show, I was telling the wife that I'll rerun the water freeze dryer test this weekend. So I've got spring water, I've got my softened house water, I have RO water, and then I have RODI water. So I've got true 0 ppm water, running all 4, a tray of each. Wow. And seeing the difference is pretty eye-opening. I mean, RO's good. It's better than tap for sure. I mean, but
post that shit. I want to share it.
Yeah, I'll post it up. So we're gonna film it this weekend.
Because in my grow room, I literally use tap water in my evaporative cooler.
So I used I have very low, under 150 ppm water coming out of my house anyways. Going through an RO filter and then running 6 years in my flower room, you could see you could wipe it off the walls. That's all from the humidifier. Then installing the double RODI filters. So now 0 ppm water, there's nothing in the air. And when I ran the freeze dryer test the first time, it kind of was like, holy shit, I can't believe the difference. Like RO, you think 0 ppm, but it's really not 0. And 1 ppm is enough.
We're lucky to have really clean water out here. Most of our water comes from the mountains or reservoirs from the mountains, which still isn't clean, but clean.
I know. I got good clean water too. It's having a good water source is great.
It certainly helps. I mean, the filtration obviously is your last kind of line of defense there. Mm-hmm. But what about, you said, the sprayers or the misters kind of scare you, but what if we get down to a smaller micron size, say like a fogger? At what point are we kind of still going to get that deposits along the walls?
The fogger actually will fail. So I had a fogger system I built about 8 years ago using the ceramic. They make them. It's actually a House of Hydro that sells them, that are specifically replaceable emitters, because even with RO water, they will build up deposits and those emitters will fail over time.
Mm-hmm.
So
try running them in a cloner and using some cloning solution in there.
Yeah.
It's like,
I did that one too. I did fogponics for a while. It's cool, but
it works too. It works. It's fucking great, honestly.
If you can keep the equipment running, that's the problem with it.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed the pads on my evaporative cooler get really crappy. But I do think that an evaporative cooler,
most of it going out, as long as you don't have a fan. If you have an active fan behind it, that's where you're going to run into the issue.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think using an evaporative is going to emit less pollutants or whatever you want to call them than using
a build up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like every even your house humidifier, they sell the drop-in tablets. They sell, what is it, like the bacteria stuff that also binds to the calcium and allows it to fall out of your humidifier so it doesn't get picked up. Because we just replaced our big humidifiers filter, and that shit's crusty as shit. And it was RO.
Most people here in Colorado use an evaporative cooler on the top of their house for cooling their house, because we have such fucking low humidity.
Yeah, if it's dry, it's evaporatives. Definitely swamp coolers work.
What's everybody else going? Buds for Growly, get some questions. I'm almost
out. I was going to say, it's funny because you only go a few states south of you, and there's houses everywhere with not only solar panels, but like solar, what is it called, the heating for like the
hot water heaters. Yeah,
for their pools and stuff. And I mean, I assume probably their house too, because it's just so stinking hot, especially midday. Like can't even be out in the sun.
System, the way they build them with like the tank above the panel and hot water rises. So it goes up and it pushes the cold water back down. So it always keeps that tank full of hot water. You can literally have a 200-gallon tank on your roof of your house with hot water in it all the time. Those systems are wild.
And yeah, so not only do you have hot water all the time for free because the sun's heating it up, but you also have free electricity. All maybe not as a grower, home grower, but certainly as just a normal, like average, power usage household. They're taken care of down there, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've always wondered if you put X amount of panels on your roof, how does it completely power your entire house without the need of exterior?
I know someone with a residence in Arizona that has not paid for electricity since they put up solar panels.
Damn.
Yeah.
Texas is pretty common too, but like in my area, we deal with too much snow for one.
Yeah,
the sun is so low.
3 months of the year you might get enough.
Right, exactly. So it depends. There's some really good solar calculators online. Like your area would be great, Pedro, because you're so high up.
Yeah, there's a lot of
as long as you got a south facing, and now they do the bifacial panels are the new things, where they actually have solar collectors on both sides, and you just put your panel straight up and say fucking angle. Just let it grow. You could put a reflector behind it.
Yeah, whatever reflections we're getting, let's put up some grow room walls around this bitch.
Yeah,
fuck it. Throw up the high pressure sodiums. Let's get all that.
Build a grow that's all mirrors, and then put bifacial panels 4 foot out from the mirrors. Be all set, and then just.
I watched something recently on solar panels that were in one of the deserts in the Middle East. I don't know which one, but one of the big ones. And it said at a certain size, because of the reflectivity of the panels, which is something like 90% or something, you put enough panels in the desert and it actually starts to make the desert even hotter.
Oh, great. So now we don't just have the concrete effect of cities.
Yeah, we have a solar panel farm effect of.
Well, have you ever seen the solar batteries that are like liquid molten salt? It's like a giant tower full of salt, and then they have mirrors all around at the angle of the sun, and just like that's scary. That's fucking death ray shit, man.
Yeah,
some damn mirror falls out of angle and takes out an airplane or some shit. Well, our wing just got cut off.
might be bound to happen eventually.
So are you just running the single freeze dryer then? What did you say you were 30, 40 pounds?
Me? Yeah. I just used a single freeze dryer. I need another one.
I was gonna say you got to be assembly lining that thing constantly, right?
It's all about timing and when we wash and when we run the freeze dryer and when it's going to be done next for us to process. So it's all timing. I
believe. Well, God bless you on the timing and getting that right, because I believe in redundancy, especially when it comes to this game. And from what I don't have really any experience with freeze dryers, because I'm the hydrocarbon guy, but I know a lot of guys that have more than one freeze dryer because the freeze dryer seems to be failing all the time, So, I mean, are you just extremely lucky and don't need a backup, or what's going on over there?
Honestly,
I've heard so many horror stories.
I've been very lucky. I haven't had a single problem with my freeze dryer. I've had it for over 3 years. I run it once, maybe twice a week. And that's about it. I haven't had any problems. We change the oil often, and my freeze dryer is just a home model. It's not even the commercial model.
Nice.
So.
I freaking oops one time, and I think I had my shelf temp set back at the when it's reset. I think it resets at 120.
Well, yeah,
and
120.
I ruined an entire freeze dryer worth of hash. And on that note, what are your freeze dryer settings?
So because mine's a home model, it doesn't allow me to set freeze time, so it's already built into the system. When I turn my freeze dryer on, it does a 30-minute pre-freeze, and then what I set my shelf temps, I set them to 30, And then when I do final dry time, this freeze dryer only allows me to go down to 8 hours. So it has auto detect in it. And so when it knows that it's dry, it's going to finish less than 8 hours if it needs to. There's times I come in here, it's done at 15 hours, sometimes at 19 hours.
I was just going to ask how long an entire run is.
Average 19 hours. It really just depends on how thick those trays are, and we try to go less than a quarter inch. Probably way less than a quarter inch. I mean, so and again, my freeze dryer I can only do 4 trays at a time. So we do 4 batches in a day. That's like 16 pounds in a day. It's not a lot.
Yeah, we run 4 freeze dryers up at Eden. 4 of the largest, or 3 of the largest, and 1 of the XLs, and a cycle is like 36 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So talk about timing, doing it, washing an entire freaking, it's a lot.
Yeah. So like we start washing, about 9 a.m. in the morning. We get done about 4 o'clock, sometimes 3 o'clock, just depends. And then we put everything in the freeze dryer, and then it's done the next morning about 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., 10:30. And, so it's 18, 19 hours. And then we process it all. And then the next day, if we're wanting to, we can wash again and have another 4 batches. I consider my washing a batch is 5 washes in my wash machines. You can go, 6, 7, 8, 10 washes if you want, but you're just getting a really tiny puddle of loose resin, and it's just not worth it for me at that point. So 5 washes is my main number that we hit. If for some reason we're working with a strain on wash 5, it just dumped, like it was almost equal to wash 3 or 4, just dumped. Then we'll be like, fuck it, let's do wash 6, dude. Let's see what it does. I'm probably not going to mix it into the rosin that gets processed, but it's still, we just get to see what it does and what we're missing. So
Pedro, I see a thumbs up. Does that strike you as kind of the normal process? Is that a lot of washes? Too few?
So we usually wash 4 washes on a load is what we call it. And a lot of times our 4th and or 5th, we don't mix with our premium quality. We'll use that for food grade or wherever the hell it's going to go. But I've always said, generally wash until it stops. And on your last wash, beat the fuck out of it, man. Beat the fuck out of it. You don't have to use it in your premium, but it's usable material.
Absolutely. I just, we're just like you got clients you're probably working for and got a process for, and you got to get it done. And so it's like 5 washes, we're done. We're next batch. Let's keep going. Next batch.
How many loads can you get done in a 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. time?
We'll do 4
loads,
4 batches. Yeah. So what you call is a load is for me is a batch. So we're doing 2 wash machines that are right behind me, and we're doing 2 to 3 pounds in each wash machine. And so we can do that 4 times in a day. It takes us about an hour and a half, a little less than an hour to do a batch. Like we've got it down really good, and we're dialed in. Absolutely. So yeah, it's 2 of us. It's not just me. So I've got my buddy here helping me, and he's running all the washing, and I'm assisting him and making sure the water's full. It's iced up. I've got trays for him. I got spoons for him. The trays are covered in parchment paper. Like I keep him dialed in so he can just flow.
Like I say, that's straight assembly line shit right there, man. That's impressive as hell.
Yeah,
can we note the role that Pez-Bro has taken? Like, I think that's important to point out that it's almost like he's filling in the gaps. He's delegated the important part of it, I would assume, which is the actual, managing of the process, right? But he is making sure all those nooks and crannies are filled with those things that are going to make it to that level that maybe the next person isn't taking, just having that parchment ready, I'm not the guy to speak to this because I don't know the process the ins and outs of the process, but just I know that having that next step ready sometimes is the difference of 5, 10, 15 minutes of preparing that next step, in which
100%.
now you're oxidizing your product, you're letting it dry out, it's got to whatever it is, right? Just having that flow, like you said, is a big difference, man. I think that changes a lot, and I think that's great managerial kind of processes right there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's like a very efficient dance.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone through I've gone through all the trials and errors and the mistakes of when I'm doing it by myself, even with someone working with me. It's just, especially when you have someone that's working with you, that you guys are in sync with each other. You know his next move, he knows your next move. That makes the day go by fast. We enjoy each other's company. We don't bark at each other. We have fun. We talk about random shit, nonsense, sometimes politics, like all kinds of stuff. But it's just always being prepped up for what you're doing for the full day. So when I teach people in classes, if I know that I'm going to be pressing all this stuff that we just washed the next day, when I'm done washing, or while my buddy's washing, I'm over here cutting all of my safety sheets, all of everything I need to have ready for tomorrow for the next day, so that when we collect that loose resin out of the freeze dryer, we're collecting it under 50 degrees. We're vacuum sealing it when we get it packed in the bags. Like it's just a whole assembly line. We're here to rock and just keep going. And you know, if you're not prepped up, you're fumbling around, you make mistakes, you break things, people get mad at each other, people blame shit on each other because you didn't do this, he was supposed to do that. There's none of that here, bro. I don't tolerate that, for one, but there's none of that here. And we it's smooth sailing on everything we do. Once in a while, we'll flood the room. That happens. But
Yeah,
we've all flooded our reservoirs, right?
Yeah,
I've got a last
point,
flood thing on the
memory.
wall written up there.
You really have a reservoir if you
recently.
haven't flooded your room.
We're lucky to
What are
get
float valves?
2 loads done in a day.
Okay.
And then we're washing in the Osprey, and we're washing 15 to 17,000 grams. And by the way, the Osprey does not handle 20 to 25,000 grams like they advertise. But we only have 1 person in our washroom, but we do have 2 in the press room. We have me pressing, and then I turn it over to somebody who collects it, which is why we're able to get so much done in a day.
Absolutely. You're just pumping. You don't got to stop. You just keep feeding it. So absolutely.
Man, talking about everything. I mean, you've got so much time in the room with that dude.
All the secrets. It's like a barber, right?
Yeah. And this episode is dropping some knowledge, let me tell you. You mentioned parchment paper lining your freeze dryer trays.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are advocating for not using the parchment, just using the raw tray itself. What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't tried it. I've noticed that when I have loose resin that somehow escaped the parchment paper and has got into the tray, it wipes right off. I haven't had any sticking to it to where I couldn't collect it or brush it right off. Usually when that happens, I just brush it into the garbage. I'm done with it, but it's only a drop, of loose resin that's on there. So I haven't ran a whole tray like that. Have you, or have you tried it?
I haven't, but I think one of the biggest variables in that is the temperature of the room that you're pulling your trays out of, because I've seen trays just condense like crazy pulling it into a warm room, so that kind of scares me, honestly. If you don't have the right variables to do it, then I would not recommend anybody doing it, especially if you're not and I hate to say it, but if you're not like a pro doing it all the time.
Sure. I don't notice my trays I don't notice my trays getting too much condensation on them when I'm pulling them out of my freeze dryer and straight to my room. I see more of my trays freezing up more on the outsides, like turning white, like not even building any condensation on them. So it might work well for me if I try it without the parchment. I'll have to do it just for fun.
Yeah, I think if your room is the right temperature, you're okay. But I think if you're dealing with a warmer room, which sometimes you have to, I think it's a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's times even when I've pulled loose resin out of the freeze dryer, and I barely just got my room to 50 degrees or just under, and it wants to, I call it wants to leather up on you. When you grab your scraper or whatever, you're collecting your loose resin off your tray, then it all just comes in a slab and it wants to bend or fold. Like it's like a fruit leather, or I like to call it leathering up. And at that point, if that happens, I'll stick that in parchment paper and then I shove it in the freezer for like 5 minutes, and then I pull it back out, and then I can just crush it and it just crumbles right up again. And some people freak out and they're like, I ruined it. Oh, what would I do? I'm like, toss it in the freezer. Just let it sit for 5 minutes. Come back, you can crush it right back up. It'll be like your loose resin dust again,
Yeah, I've definitely been dealing with that with our washer. And on the 2 load, like I said, we were having a problem getting 2 loads done in a day. I spent, it was last week, I spent an entire day in the washroom changing variables, and we can easily get 2 loads done now.
Nice. Yeah, for a while it was just 3 loads. I used to have a worker that worked for me, and he wanted to push himself, and he wanted to see how many batches or loads he can do in a day. And that was a 9 to 5 that he did, and he got 6 batches done. I'm like, you're a fucking animal, bro.
That's crazy. Do you think you're? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, at least now I know how much you just proved to me how fast you can work. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, right. Do you still feel you're getting everything off the plant in running that many?
I mean, we always check the flour when we're done, and we're holding it up to the light, and we're looking at all those stalks on the buds, and we're not seeing any heads left over. And again, that was just a test and for fun. We don't do that. I don't allow that. That's when you can make mistakes because you're trying to rush and trying to push washes, and that's not what we're about. But what we're looking for is we're holding that bud up. And when you hold that bud up into a light, whether you need glasses or a magnifying glass, and you see nothing but stalks on there from your trichomes and there's no heads on there, you know that you got it all. And you did a very gentle wash because you're not collecting all those stems or stalks that are coming off your flower.
Do you believe that even with like edible materials that the stalks don't have valuable material?
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, a lot of the loose resin we work with doesn't have any of the stalks in it, and the stuff that I consider food grade goes to my edible makers. And
I think there's one type of stalk that does contain oil, but that's the main style that we are after shouldn't have any oil in the stalk.
Yeah, I agree. For premium, it shouldn't. But like I said, on usually the 4th wash that we do, we beat the shit out of it, and we do notice that there is valuable material in there, especially for edibles. I wouldn't dab it, but yeah, definitely noticed.
Some of our wash number 5s, I mean, we're doing a 6-minute wash on wash number 5. And, there's times that's when sometimes certain strains will see a little bit of green material coming through, and we try our hardest to get out at times. But there's times those wash number 5s come out better than wash number 2s. Like, you're just like, holy shit, why? And wow. Like, and then you get other times where wash number 5s just come out so dirty looking compared to number 2. And it's just strain dependent, I'd fully feel, or how the farmer harvested it.
Yeah, I definitely feel that 4th and 5th wash is definitely darker in color. And my 45 to 72 is dog shit. Definitely edible, or pretty much edible.
So it's something that I don't know if anybody's ever wanting to know this, but I'll tell you my wash times. Again, I do 5 washes, which I consider as one batch in my little wash machines over here with 2 to 3 pounds. My first wash in these machines right here is 10 seconds. The reason I do a 10-second wash is because I'm eliminating any kind of for one, I'm taking off some of the ripest fruit. Two, I'm taking off any kind of contaminations, dust, bugs, pests, bug shit, any of those types of stuff. They're going to get washed off in that 10-second wash, and I push them out.
Like the dunk wash.
And so,
go ahead.
So then my second wash I do for 1.5 minutes. Third wash I do for 3 minutes. Fourth wash I'm 4.5 minutes. Fifth wash I'm at 6 minutes. If you're going to do any more washes after number 5, keep it. We would keep it at 6 minutes. Seventh wash 6 minutes. 6 minutes. We just keep it at 6 minutes at that point. When I'm using the AE green one, our third wash, I don't have to do more than 3 washes on this AE green machine. It's super gentle. I can run it for 20 minutes and I'll see no green. It's amazing. But those are my wash times that I use on the 5-gallon wash machines.
That's what I was going to say on the 5 gallons. One of the big variables there is not being able to adjust your RPMs.
True.
Whereas the Osprey, we can adjust it up to, I think it's 420 RPMs. So we adjust our times and our RPMs throughout the entire wash.
Absolutely. With the AE green that I'm wearing this hoodie, you can adjust it as well and change that with that machine, which is dope. You can change the speed if you want it to do a vortex. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little machine.
I think our first, second, and third wash, we've now decreased it to 10 minutes each wash. And then our fourth or fifth, that's when we beat the shit out of it. But again, we separate the fourth and the fifth and the food grade.
Nice. We separate everything. We separate wash 1 through 5. Most of all of our rosin that we make will contain wash 2 and 3. Sometimes there's wash number 4s that make it in there. It's just absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And wash number 5s, they're always separated.
Yeah, we put different micron wash bags in there, but we do separate everything just in case, because sometimes we'll press the 120 to 159 and it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's weird. We've washed strains that we turn into cold cure, and most of all of our cold cure will be washed 2, 3, and sometimes 4, and the cold cure comes out white, blonde. And then there's times where we've done that with a certain strain and then it starts turning green. And we're like, what the hell happened? I'm going to take out wash number 4. Let's do it again. And we do wash just 2 and 3 in there. And we took cold cured again. And then it turns light green. And we're like, what the fuck? So then we eliminate wash number 2. And then we put wash 3 and 4 back with each other. And there's no green. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? It's
right.
like ass backwards. It's like,
no shit.
We don't get it. We don't know if it's the strain. Everything that we do when we're washing is 100% consistent. Like, we don't cut corners, nothing. And I make all my own ice. I don't buy store-bought ice. I don't use store-bought ice ever. And I don't get it. It's just weird.
I would highly recommend everybody in chat do not use store-bought ice. I used to work in a fast food industry, when I was in my teens, and the inside of those fucking ice machines are nasty. We clean the inside of ours about once a week.
Nice. Yeah, we clean ours once a month. And, I mean, we check it all the time, but it gets cleaned once a month, and we run a sanitizer through it, and we do the whole work. We take it apart and clean the fans and everything. So, yeah, I bag all my own ice.
Yeah. When I go to a fast food restaurant and order a drink, I always order no ice.
Yeah.
I made sure that when I got mine, I had a UV sterilizer as well.
Nice.
It's another good option for a small home one. You don't get that usually with the big ones, but you do, but that's a different price level.
Right.
They get really stupid expensive at that price. But yeah, the commercial ice makers are notorious for being horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, we use so much ice in cooling our water. We've got a chiller, but I think it only chills to like 45 or so. So we're definitely using ice in our how do I put it? We chill in one reservoir, and then we bring the water into another reservoir that we drop to as close to 32 as possible, and that's what we use for washing and for spraying.
Nice.
So we don't use ice in the wash, but we do use a shit ton of ice.
I am so thankful and lucky that my water comes out so fucking cold out of the ground.
No, it's definitely money.
Mine's already sub 40 degrees when it comes out of my RO, and then it's just the glycol. It just keeps it at the perfect temp. Nice. As long as I've got my room cold enough, the glycol chiller can keep up. But I mean, I wouldn't be fighting 110 degree temps with my setup. That's for sure.
Now, temperatures in the wash and press room are definitely two variables to pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like that talking humidity in both as well, because that does matter. I mean, we've seen it in a lot of the preppers will talk about this. If you're running a freeze dryer and your room is too humid, you will condensate on the front of the freeze dryer, and because of the angle of it, it has to be angled backwards so that it'll drain properly. All that water will pour right off, and you'll have a little puddle right in front of your freeze dryer. So if your room's too humid, that's a pretty good indicator.
We have a separate washroom and press room, and I think that the humidity in the press room is much more important than the humidity in the washroom. Like the humidity in the washroom can be a lot higher, and I don't like it as high in the press room.
You want your washroom to be comfortable more than anything, because you're already dealing with cold.
I want my washroom to be as cold as fucking possible.
Yeah, I tell everybody you want to be uncomfortable when you're working in a cold room.
Now the press room, on the other hand, if you press too cold of a room, man, you're talking about some shattery shit, man.
100%.
Trying to collect. And there's another variable that we're changing all the time is the temperature in our press and collection room.
Absolutely. There's times when we're collecting and I'm like, man, I need it. I like it around 50 degrees in here. And a lot of strains that we work with, I'm able to collect it without it shattering. And then I get those strains that are really stable. And my AC is not running. It's 55, almost 60 degrees because I haven't turned it on in a while. And that rosin just wants to shatter when I'm scraping it off the parchment. I'm like, what the hell, dude? And then I have to hand collect it because it doesn't. Every time I scrape it, it just shatters everywhere.
Yeah, our rosin is collected within 30 seconds, up to a minute at most after pressing.
Same here.
Yeah, but you're right, dude. I think our press room, we always run at 55 to 60. But our washroom, we try to get it as cold as possible.
Yep.
I'm the exact opposite. I keep my water and my wash cold. Now I get to be comfortable.
Do you feel that makes your water get warmer faster?
Well, yeah, it would if I wasn't offsetting it with a chiller. I mean, my water never fluctuates temperature. It stays dead on.
He's got
with people without a chiller, they'd have to use significantly more ice, right?
Yeah, just like we did before we had cold rooms, right? I mean, it's possible to do without a cold room. Like you got to remember, not everyone has the full setups.
That's why I like asking these questions, because chat probably doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, like we were, who was it, Randy earlier? He's out in the barn right now because it's cold enough right now to wash hash. This is hash washing season for a lot of people because it's cold outside.
Yeah, absolutely. When before I had a cold room, we had to wash late night when it was dark. Even in the summer days, we'd have to hope that it would get into the 50 degrees at night. And there's days it didn't, and we just had to use a lot of ice. And back then I didn't have an ice machine, so we were buying all our ice. We were hand paddling all our washes, and otherwise we were getting up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. to do early washes before it started getting warm by 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's like it was limited back then.
The reason I went with the iceless direction was looking to bring the cost down on iceless because of the cost of building a cold room. So the scenario I'm building out is for under $2,000, you can have a vessel that stays at 32 degrees as long as your room is not 70. Your room has to be at a decent temperature, and you have to have cold enough starting water. It's going to hold water at a good temperature.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out, and I can't, why I started washing in a cold room. But when I started out here in Colorado, that was the first thing I built, was a cold room. And I don't remember where I got that information from.
You got to also remember there's a lot of pieces to it too, right? So when you're collecting, where are your trays going if you don't have a cold room? That's a variable. Well,
freezer.
So for me, I don't put them in the freezer even. I built.
You just go straight to the.
No, I have a cold plate on my stainless steel table.
There you go.
So just like candy builders, it's got a radiator underneath, so it keeps my top. I can set my stainless tray. It's going to stay cold.
We've got the stainless tables, but I've always thought about getting a thicker cooling plate, if you will.
Even just a plate of metal would hold that temperature. I mean,
absolutely.
I bought one from, was it Dab Right, or somebody sent me one. That's the old Dab collection. It's just a chunk of fucking metal that you set your parchment on so you can collect. Nothing special.
Let's go to Cold Stone and steal whatever they got going on over there. That's one of the benefits of dry ice, and that's what I'm doing over here. I don't have a cold room, and I just use dry ice to keep things cold. That's similar to what you guys are doing with ice to just keep things cold, because in warmer temperatures and more exposed atmospheres, you're going to sublimate more of that dry ice into the atmosphere. So you need to replace it more often than you would if it was colder temperatures or more enclosed. Speaking of more enclosed, the way to do that is similar like to you guys do with the chiller. You can have a jacketed closed loop system, run a chiller in there and not have to use dry ice at all, not have to worry about the environment around it at all, as long as you got a powerful enough chiller, which I'll be honest, if you're running like a 30-pound closed loop system, these chillers are going to be over $100,000.
Right. Yeah. You're trying to go super cold though.
Yeah. -40 to -70 to -80 degrees Fahrenheit. Some of these will get them down to, I'm not trying to go that low, but
yeah, that's actually, so I looked back at your videos and was looking back at how you were cooling things when I started down this path. And I ended up actually in the beer brewing community is where this all came from, because they take hot beer and crash it very cold, very rapidly. And so if you go and you look at how they've done this, it's the same thing. A lot of it's translated, the ether, the wash that you're wearing. What was they
doing the condensing coils?
Yeah. I'm stoned, and all of a sudden you're making fucking finger motions, and I did the squirrel thing.
I'm so stoned, I got to type my questions out in chat over here.
I feel that. Yeah, chilling beer.
Yeah. So the Aether, they did the same thing. It's basically like a canonical fermenter, which is exactly what I tried. I don't know, Pedro, how long ago was that? I mean, 7 years when I told you about the canonical that I first bought.
Fuck if I remember.
It's been forever ago. I tried to put a paddle in one of those years ago because of the beer brewing community. Basically what they've created. It's a cool little setup. But there's a lot to be learned from those industries. I couldn't take anything from yours. And the issue that I had was I can't replace dry ice. I needed something that was in my location. So the chiller was the only direction I could go. I don't have a Myers to run out to.
Trust me, I'm not popping over to Meyer, and that's kind of the issue is not only are they 5 times, maybe more expensive. Well, some of them did, but they were like 5 times more expensive, and you could only get them in blocks. Whereas there's high density, the rice form, the pellet form, there's a lot of different forms that are more efficient than the block form. So I've had to go basically directly to manufacturers of dry ice around the state. And fortunately, I've been, within maybe 20 minutes of these manufacturers at most of my locations. So
that's cool.
But yeah, I mean, it's a constant it's a constant need. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
dude, if I go on Monday, I see the truck from fucking Ontario showing up with their, the liquid solvent to put in their tank so that they can transform it. Like they get weekly, I think multiple weekly deliveries. It's a massive operation, and I'm probably only a minor like drop in the bucket of the consumption of this dry ice, but they produce so much dry ice, and it, at a certain point you buy enough dry ice to just go buy a chiller, you know what I mean? But it's like I said, those things can be, depending on your operation, over $100,000.
When you're talking
a
pallet chiller is fucking expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that in the solventless industry, running a chiller is a superior option. But yeah, man, they're expensive, and they're very dependent upon how much water you use in a day and what temperature your tap water is coming in at.
At that point, you really have to bring. You need an engineer. You need an engineer that can run the numbers with your processing crew and calculate out your needs. Like my system is designed around my room. You can't take mine and put it in someone else's room and have it work. It probably won't work 1-to-1. My temperatures are different. I have AC, that's same thing. CoolBot, not quite as large as yours. Mine's only 25,000. So, but it helps me offset when it's the hot days in the summer. You sound like you put a lot of work into the installation too, and I think that's an overlooked piece.
Big time.
Losing your heat. You said you have normal house insulation and then also the foam board. That's a huge extra. What is R15 just on the foam per inch? I think or something.
I had a higher R value than that. I'm trying to look on there. It was really high. It was like 20 or something like that. It was expensive. It was like $21 a sheet. It was really expensive.
Oh, you haven't looked in a while then, man. It's gone fucking stupid.
I've had this cold room for about 5 years now.
So I was going to say, when I built mine, it was $20 a sheet. And then I went to upgrade my fucking chicken coop last year and do my solar greenhouse, my passive solar greenhouse, $65 a sheet.
Damn. See, that's something I learned just talking on this show here is I'm going to be finishing off my cold room, hopefully next Sunday. And I wasn't going to put any insulation between the studs. I have 2-inch board insulation, hard insulation that I was going to put on the inside of the room, but now I'm going to put some house insulation behind it.
Yeah, I bought the I don't remember what RF value that one had for the house insulation, but it was one of the highest ones you can buy at Home Depot, the Pink Panther stuff. It was hell of expensive, and we insulated the ceiling and all the walls, and then plywooded it up, and then the 1.5 inch the styrofoam board.
With the installation, you pay up front, so you don't pay every single day the rest of the cold room's life.
So like my cold room, I mean, I get it. A lot of people can't afford a room like what I have, and my room is pretty small. Like I said earlier, it's a 12 by 15, and fully set up with all of my equipment. I'm about $25K in it.
I can understand that.
Not too bad. I mean, we ran the electric ourselves. We didn't hire an electrician. We did some stuff ourselves with a few of my friends that are, handymen, or know construction. So that helped out on a little bit of the saving. But as far as all the equipment and all that, I'm about $25K in this room. It's not too bad.
Let's take a quick left turn as we're.
No. Hold on. Not yet. I got to get some perspective. Now that we're talking about chillers, I had to upload this from my phone because these are not one but 2 chillers I found outside of a C1D1 lab. So these are 480 volt cement outdoor mounted chillers to run a closed loop system.
Look at the damn exhaust fan on the chiller.
What the fuck, dude?
Wow.
Some engineer out there sold these horse huggers.
Yeah. Zoom in on that shit right there.
Exactly. That's why I took a picture of it. I knew you'd appreciate it.
It is a 10 horsepower fucking.
Wow, that's Wow.
Overkill, you think? Overkill?
I mean, yes,
he was
but
so much
efficient,
overkill, he
maybe, you
lost
know?
himself. Oh no.
I hit the damn back button on my mouse trying to look at and read what I was pointing at. And I
You
bumped.
got so scared by this 10 amp fucking
Yeah,
outdoor
Holy shit, man.
So, like I said, let's take a
Yeah.
quick left turn towards the end of the show here. What do you consider cold cure?
Cold cure, I consider it at, let's see, I would say at about a 65-degree temperature without any heat process or heat added to it to manipulate it or to cure it quicker. And a cold cure is going to honestly take you over 5 weeks on most strains, I feel.
That's what I was kind of getting at is I consider the refrigerator a true cold cure, but man, that's going to take a month to a month and a half.
That's going to take
So I
longer.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you about
I've
that
got-
65.
So
I
like
got mine set to 55 behind me for my cold cure.
So that jar that I showed you guys earlier, this looks like cold cure, but I forced heated this.
Dude, there's a lot of people in the industry that won't say that. A lot.
I'll tell people that all the time. I'll tell people it's not a cold cure. I'd let people know that my product is called a whip. And again, it looks just like cold cure. It's wet, it's white, it's got the texture, but it's heat forced. I force cured it.
Yeah, I went to a competition here not too long ago, and one of the companies that were here said, "Oh, this is cold cure and whatnot." And I called them out. I said, "That is not cold cure. You heat assisted that," and they wouldn't admit it.
No, I'll tell people that I heat assisted. I have no reason to lie to people. I have no reason to hide anything from people, because then later on they're going to tell somebody, and then they're going to come up and ask me, and I got to remember that lie, and I got to tell them, dude, like, why go down that road?
Yep, stay true.
I'm an open book to everybody. Anything I do, whether you or him or she agrees or disagrees, like, that's you, that's not me. What works for me or what works for you is what works best,
Do you ever wash your hash naked?
No, can't say I've
Oh,
done that.
wait, you use wash bags in your 5 gallons?
Oh, dude, I'm thinking like you washing like naked, bro.
Oh shit!
No, that's actually what I'm asking. No.
No,
He's got it. I don't know what Pedro's talking about. Because I was thinking.
I was like, wait a minute, we're supposed to wear clothes?
I know. I was like, oh shit, this is taking.
That's what I thought with clothes.
It's freaky.
I always wear clothes. When I'm washing in my wash machines, I am not using a filtered bag in there. It's just cannabis and sometimes ice and water. That's it. We don't use a cube bag. You're damaging trichomes. I feel those bags. What happens when you're using these 5-gallon wash machines? Those bags get sucked down and twisted up, and you're smashing and breaking trichomes at that time, or heads. And what happens when they go through your bag system? They're broken. You lost them. They've gone to the bottom of your bucket or your trough. And no, we don't do that. We don't use those, and we don't wash naked. Even here.
What do you think of people, or not people? What do you think of actually using a wash bag inside their washer?
Like I said, you get less of a yield. Again, you're washing away heads that have been crushed or damaged, and I think of THC heads or trichome heads as similar to a grape. A grape has a cell wall, and what happens when you squeeze a grape? They squirt open. Same thing with your trichome heads. You broke them, you damaged them. They're going to sieve through all your different microns and go. They're gone. So I don't believe in them. I can't say I haven't used them, because I have. I've seen them, but we no longer use them. We haven't used those in 6 years, 7 years.
So one of the things I'll see on my paper filter at the bottom of my materials column sometimes is the anthocyanins, those purple little patches of color on a paper filter, right?
Boy, this has become a thing in the last couple months here, but go ahead.
It's very I mean, it's clear the strains that when I open the bag, and sometimes you'll even see it on the side of the bag, you're like, oh shit, like this is definitely a purpley strain. You know what I mean? It's gonna leave some of those on that paper filter, especially when I'm keeping it to like -40 degrees or whatever. What you just said though about breaking open heads and just leaking them through the the filter bags makes me wonder if not that we're trying to collect anthocyanins necessarily, but makes me wonder if all those really cool looking Instagram posts of the super purpley wine looking water is actually just the result of a shitty wash.
I want to step in here real quick. The anthocyanins are, how do I want to put this? They definitely release in the wash a little bit, and I believe that that's more of breaking the heads open. I think a lot of people consider it like chlorophyll kind of like thing, but I can't remember who the hell has been taking the pictures recently, has actually proved that the oil in the heads themselves are purple.
You can have it go up into the heads.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of them can happen for sure.
Exactly. It's not an every time thing. I've had plenty of deep purple. My Jawa juice, pure purple, but as soon as I washed it, you could wash the purple right off. The anthocyanins came from the actual leaves and from the stems, not from the heads themselves. When I scope the heads on the dried material, there's no purple in the heads at all. And not even really far up the stalk even. So the heads were nice and juicy, but it just did not translate that purple straight up. It's definitely genetics when it comes to that. I have had some really purple rosin, but I was really surprised at the amount of people that are reintroducing the purple back into their rosin. I thought that's where you were going to go, Pedro, with it.
Fuck that. That wouldn't even be a no.
And doing the, I don't know,
the only reintroduction that I would ever consider doing is collecting the spent, if you will, spent terpenes in the freeze dryer, collecting that and then isolating and potentially reintroducing. We have not done it, but I would consider doing that.
How does everyone feel about that? Is that a remasterification of the final form of the original form, or is that a bastardization of a component that shouldn't be involved in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you could take that one of two ways. Like, oh no, this is doing what you should be doing and collecting all of the things and putting it into its original form of the thing that you were trying to collect, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, you lost it and it's no longer part of it, and now you're putting.
Did you lose it though?
That's not been part of it.
That's also part of the question, though. Is
that still part of the process? If I write it in my SOPs that's part of the process, it's still part of the process, right?
But did you actually lose it? Because now I understand you lost it, but you also lost the oil that went with that terpenes, because that's coming from busted heads. So it's not terpenes that you've sucked out of the hash that you already have. You didn't reduce the terpene content of your hash,
but maybe you increased the terpene artificially.
Content. So I was on the fence with this one. Like initially, I was like, that makes sense to reintroduce it. But then after time, I kind of went back and I'm like, I don't know, because that feels like you're going to artificially inflate the terpenes.
Right. If you're reconcentrating it, yes. If you're reconcentrating it to a level that is unnatural to that, the natural form of the plant, then yeah, it feels to me kind of like a dirty thing, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, well, is there a plus or minus here? Because what if you've lost a certain amount of percentage?
Yeah,
and are you actually creating something that's just a shitty version of what you grew,
Well, here's another way to look at it. Okay. If you grow from clone 2 plants, you extract one, you extract the other, you pull the terpenes out of one and put it with the rosin of the other. Is that okay? Because
I think as long as you label it as such, it's fun to be able to do these things and produce these things, right? And we should be able to try them and stuff. But I should not be representing lime skunk with fucking 25% terpenes as lime
Natural,
skunk.
right?
Yeah. Like I feel like I need to put something on there that says like now double the terpenes.
Yeah, I could agree with that. If it was, I don't like that now. Double the term. Yeah, if it was clearly labeled, like
that's got to be part of the marketing gimmick, the packaging. There's something, but like, if all we wanted was the original form of the plant, go smoke the fucking plant, right? But like, even me taking the step of trying to reduce some of the contaminants of it is changing it, so it's okay to change it, but what's the intent behind it? Is the intent to refine it to a more maybe healthier or a consumable, whatever it is, form, or is it to just artificially inflate the flavor to the point where it might not even be?
Did you actually change it? All you did is reduce the ratio of contaminants to the oil and the terpenes that stayed at their proper ratio.
That's what I'm saying. Where is this line?
Is doing this and then reintroducing something else.
Right.
So that I feel is a change. I don't think what you're saying by us washing or us or you, even you blasting, I don't think that's changing it. You're reducing it.
You're concentrating it, right?
Yeah.
But it's concentrating things that we're looking to concentrate. But
concentrating at the same rate at the natural ratio.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let me be clear. Even on the XL freeze dryer that we're having, if we go through that process, which is a pain in the ass, we're only getting like a half ounce of actual isolated terpenes. So it's not a lot in consideration of hundreds of thousands of grams. But
I still feel like it's not truly a loss though, because it's
not if you're collecting it.
Well, no, even if you're letting it go down the drain, it's not a loss because it's not part of the hash. It was never part of the hash that you did collect. It was part of the hash that was broken that you didn't collect. And now you're catching the terpenes at a later state and introducing them to the hash that you did collect that already has the terpenes in it. Because
you're not losing it from the hash unless your settings are wrong.
I was gonna say, unless you're really like doing a poor job of collecting.
Yeah,
I mean, you would collect a higher amount of fats and lipids.
Like if your freeze dryer is set to dry too long or to dry too hot there's a lot of different variables. Then
we're not talking about correcting mistakes though.
Sure.
That's a very different scenario. We're talking about a proper run and collect like those terpenes that are left over are not a loss. They're because I don't know how to.
Let's be clear. Even I can't open it, but that's a loss of terpenes.
Right.
But that's a loss of terpenes that were naturally in there. When the heads are sealed, you're not losing the terpenes. The only time you're losing the terpenes is when the heads get ruptured. And at that point, you're losing the oil as well. So the ratio of terpenes to oil stays the same. When you reintroduce lost terpenes, now you throw the natural ratio off that the plant was harvested with. I'm not saying it's not a bad idea. I'm just saying it's
good conversation.
Yeah, it's an unnatural process, I feel like.
Pain in the ass process is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, I looked at it.
Boys, we got to come up with
distill, and I'm like, yeah.
We got to come up with a new label for this now, and I'll task everyone in chat for putting that down in the comments below after the fact. Pez-Bro, you've been a fantastic guest tonight. We've had some incredible information gifted upon us and our viewers tonight by you, and some great conversation was had. I really appreciate you joining us. You guys can find us everywhere every Friday night on X, YouTube, Twitch, Spotify after the show, and wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you join in, subscribe, get a thumbs up. We're multicasting to all of our channels, and sometimes even the guests throw it up on their own YouTube channels. So I think we'll be back next week with another guest. And Pez-Bro, you got anything to plug before we bounce out of here?
No, man. I really appreciate you guys all and your time and showing interest in me and asking me the questions that you guys asked me. And I'm all about, each one teach one. I'm a huge believer of that. And that's why I told everybody I'm an open book. I get all kinds of questions through Instagram, and, I do private training and hands-on training with people. And I enjoy what I do, man. It's one of my biggest passions besides fishing, you know.
Dude, I was stoked when you said yes to be on the show, so I appreciate it very much.
Heck yeah, Pedro. I appreciate
Awesome.
you,
It was
brother.
a great conversation tonight, man. That was awesome.
Well, now that you brought up fishing, I'm not going to let you go because I was recently down in Florida and I caught a grouper, and it was, I think, a gag grouper. It was the first time I ever caught one of those. I'll tell you what, man, I've caught a lot of fish here in Michigan, and nothing's ever fought like that before. That thing almost pulled me under the dock. It was pretty freaking wild.
Yep. Groupers are fun to catch.
Yeah.
We used
Cheers,
to
everybody. Have a
fish
great
in the
night.
canal in the backyard in Florida, man.
There you go. That's pretty much what it was.
Good stuff. Yep.
Cheers, y'all. We'll see you next week.